Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the OK Grognard Show. It is Wednesday, September 2nd, 2020, 9:30 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Birthplace of Dungeons and Dragons and home of Ernie Gygax. And it's his birthday, September 2nd, which makes it Ernie Gygax Day. Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it all right. Ernie Gygax Day. And why are we doing it? Because we can. Because we wanna. I think it's fair to say that everybody should have a day, right? How's that look? There, let's turn that off. Let's turn that off. We'll get to that in a second. Let's start with that. There we go. Ernie Gygax Day. You can't buy happiness, but you can run or play in a game for Ernie Gygax Day. September 2nd, that's today, his actual birthday, through Labor Day weekend. And that's pretty close. It's tricky to schedule games these days. And, you know, it doesn't matter if it's an online game, it's an online game. You do it. You put something together. You meet on a virtual tabletop and play a card game or a board game. You could go to one of my favorite sites when I'm just tooling around on my own. More recently is called Board Game Arena. I play Can't Stop over there. Whoever's available to play, I sign up. I get thrown on a table. They pair you up. They group you up. It's sometimes only one other person, so there'll be 2 or 3 player games, occasionally a 4-player game. And, it takes 9 or 10 minutes. As long as everybody's up on it. And you can duck out of a game if somebody's lagging or if they appear to have lost an internet connection and you realize you're just sitting there for a while. But be patient with newer players, because there are some people that are, learning the game. And occasionally there's the analysis paralysis pro who will think of every permutation, but not quickly. So maybe some patience there too. But it's a lot of fun. Just knock out a few games here and there. Jump on, get a game in, knock a game out. Boom, boom, boom. Good times. But of course, if you can be playing some first edition Dungeons and Dragons or any Dungeons and Dragons, I don't think he'd mind. He's a guy who likes people gaming, and he likes if people will play games. Here, let's bigify it. Ernie Gygax Day. Boom. You see, I don't think there's a Gary Gygax Day. We know that. There's a Dave Arneson Day, even. And of the people that were around with original that are still hardcore gamers, then I think you got to look after those first 2. I mean, you got your Kuntz brothers, you've got Michael Mornard, you've got some other early play testers that were certainly around and contributed in some ways large, some ways small, but as I say in my postings in the OK Grognard Show Facebook group, I'm not inclined to wait until you're gone to celebrate your life with some gaming. So tough toenails. If it embarrasses you a little bit, just roll the dice already. We're going to keep this going through the weekend. Because this, baby, is what it's all about. It's about gaming. And Ernie's about gaming. And Ernie loves gaming. Never forget that. He prefers face-to-face gaming, and it makes it a little tricky for him right now, with the online stuff being about the only outlet and everything, and it's got to be breaking his heart. So, wish him a happy birthday. Tell him that you love him. Tell him that you're gaming. Tell him that you're gaming in part because you love him. And I think he'll get the message. So there you go. Do it. There's your mission. There's your mission for today and through the weekend. Get as many games as you can. And board games, he likes the train games. Any train games. He likes other games too. He used to play a lot of board games at his place over off the highway there. And even beyond that, he's played plenty of games. Do not get in a big old game of San Juan with this guy. He will crush you. What else? Oh, what's that archaeology game he loves? I'll think of it later. I'll just burst out with it. That'll be cool. Anywho, let's do a little talking about our buddy Larry Hamilton. He's been having a tough go of it. He's been dealing with some medical issues. Great guy, though. And I met him I knew him online. But then I ran into him at a GaryCon where he showed me a card game called Follow Me and Die. It's you're building armies and then you're taking them to war against other players. It's a lot of fun. I don't mean to make light of war. It's not. But this game, as a card game, card games are generally math, right? With some sort of underlying structure. With an overlay of a theme on top of it. Sorry, I got a little distracted there. So I'm trying to set this up because I want to pop over to his website. Yeah, here we go. Here, we can move this out of the way a little bit. Seems to be in camera. It's more obvious when I'm there. Anyway, Follow Me and Die. This is his website. It'll be in the show notes down below. And he recently wrote an article entitled... What was it entitled? Yeah, let's bigify it just a little bit more. We can do better. Let's do that. There we go. Nice. Follow Me and Die. Rule -1. This comes before Rule 0. This is Larry's own rule. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. 1977 to 2017, celebrating 40 years of playing D&D. Well, he's got 3 more years under his belt since then. Here's his collection of first edition books. Player's Handbook. A couple of those. 3, actually, if you count the reprint specialty editions. He's got those 3 down the bottom. Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual 2, Fiend Folio, Unearthed Arcana, Deities and Demigods, Oriental Adventures, Wilderness Survival Guide, Dungeoneer Survival Guide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are 11. I think they kind of consider the Greyhawk Adventures as a first edition, because I think there's officially 11 first edition supplements. But I don't run Greyhawk. I wouldn't have that. I don't actually run Oriental Adventures. I keep Wilderness Survival Guide and Dungeoneer Survival Guide around, but I don't dip into them too much. More as I use those occasionally for immersion for myself as a DM. I'll pick up, if I know, if I get all free time, I'll flip through one or the other depending on when I'm running my campaign whether they're mainly adventuring outdoors or indoors, and I'll just look through that and just read sections that jump out at me and say, this is this will be important to the game right now. Hey, poached eggs. There's no D in poached. What's up with that? I wish I could pay you to play. So desperate, to be honest. I made a grave cleric. A grave cleric? I don't think I know what a grave cleric is. Is that a 5th edition D&D thing? Is that a newer addition to 5th? I ran 3 5th edition campaigns, but that was all pretty early on. 2014, 2016, 2017. It's a war cleric and a grave cleric. Did I have a war cleric? I had a dwarven cleric with a war domain. He was a good battler. That was my Adventure League's character. Didn't get to see a lot of play. I mainly DM when I play, and I ran 3 different 5th edition campaigns. One, a group of us took a break from 1st edition when the D&D starter set came out, and starter set quest. I wonder if I have my 5e starter set quest. This might do it. Whoop. Yeah. Here we go. I'll pop this over here real quick. For those interested in seeing how I run a campaign of 5th edition, go to creativemountaingames.com. Look for, I'll put this in the links too. This is a good thing to have for the links. Drawing links, there we go. 5E, E, starter set quest. Alright. This is a example of how I run a 5th edition game. And it's pretty long because we played for 3 months, couple of weeks off, but 4 or 5 hour sessions each time. I went down to Games Plus in Mount Prospect. Gas was still $3.75 back then. The bakery over there had a fire. It had burned out. But there I was at Games Plus. My buddies Kurt, Dave, Rich, who manages the place. These guys are great. Kurt and Dave. Kurt's an old friend of mine since starting the Ian World Game Days out there. Before I even moved to Mount Prospect. I moved up here about 7 years ago, 7.5. And I lived in Mount Prospect for about 10 years. But even before I lived out there, I used to take the train out to go to Games Plus. Anyway, great game store. If you're ever in the area, it's the place to go. That Entenmann's Bakery outlet's gone. Got my starter set. Thank you, Rich. And then stopped by Long John Silver's for some chicken planks on the way home. Anyway, they have the basic rules up on the website. I printed those out. Let's see these 2 red booklets. These are the spell sections. I printed out the regular, all the rules, and then the spell sections separately so that each of the spellcasters could have a little spell book. And I did this in addition to the starter set. I printed out the map. I made it bigified so we could put it up on the wall so it'd be easier for people to say, all right, we're back in town. I'm going here. I'm going there. I'm going over there. I'm going, I feel like, who's it's? It's funny how that background shows up with a black background, huh? Once you don't get any color, the green just pops out. Anyway, use some flip maps and stuff. We ran it. You see the adventure continues here. There's like 6 or 7 of these, so be forewarned. It's a long read. Anyway, back to Larry's. He wrote an article and published it just yesterday called How I Run AD&D. He says, I've mentioned bits and pieces of how I run AD&D in various blog article and quick blurbs on various social media, and I don't think I've ever done a complete explanation. AD&D, and by that I mean first edition, is what I've played and ran the most. AD&D is a collection of modules that you can use or not use. My preference for how I run it is largely influenced by how we played back in the day. One example is weapon speed. We tried it a few times and gave up on it. In some ways, AD&D is better as a source of an example system for something like random gems and jewelry. I like a simpler set of rules like delving deeper. The Dungeon Master Guide is a great tool for any GM for any game. AD&D is also a great example of how not to organize an RPG rulebook. Well, there's not wrong there. Like rules should be near each other, like height, weight, and age tables. I recall similar things being near each other in a DMG, but it is only my mental catalog. Some things have 40 or 50 pages between them. And then there's something like multiple attacks by fighters, like 3/2 attacks per round, which is mentioned in a couple of places in the player's handbook, and a couple more places in the Dungeon Master's Guide. I used to have a fully functioning catalog and ability to find stuff in the various manuals, but over the years some things have faded. Things that I recall as near each other are nowhere near each other. I'm slowly getting the pieces needed. Slowly getting the pieces need organized. He's saying he's reorganizing them in his brain, and it's true that some of these things are in odd places, not where you intuitively expect them to be if you go to look stuff up. You play a little more, and yeah, poached eggs. That link will be in the show notes, as will all these links. As soon as I'm done the show, I'll be uploading it to YouTube. I'll also adjust the show notes in the saved version of this under videos on Twitch. So give it about 15 minutes after the show ends for me to get all the stuff together and get it all up and running, or all up and cataloged. I think I just have that word in my head right there. But anyway, they'll all be posted with all of that ASAP. I guarantee you, before an hour's out, everything will be up and where they're supposed to be. At least that's the way it's been 373 times so far. 374th time's a charm, they say, though, so maybe I'll mess it up today. We'll see. I've messed it up before. I just fixed it. Books used. For the DM, whatever I want. But generally, Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual 2, Fiend Folio. I don't really use the Fiend Folio much. There might be a few things in there. A lot of those monsters in there just don't feel right for the campaigns that I run. Some of them have interesting aspects, but then they have weird overall themes to them. I don't know. There's a few interesting ones. I use all kinds of things, he says, for planning settlements. And pardon me, I'm editorializing as I go along with my own. Some of this isn't his words. You can tell when I switch. So he says, for the DM, whatever I want, but generally, the Dungeon Master's Guide, Monster Manual 2, and Fiend Folio, I use all kinds of things for planning settlements, layers, tombs, and dungeons. For the player's handbook, and spells from Unearthed Arcana as they discover them. All of the above are affiliate links. So he's got links on his site to take you to places to buy those, and they're considered affiliate links. he gets a little something if you go buy something by going through that link to get there. More power to him. I'm kind of the same way with the players stuff. The players handbook is what we use, and then stuff from Unearthed Arcana can be added in as you go along. If you're spending time researching a spell, then I know what's wrong. I never turned on the circle light. That's a little better, huh? Makes me look less. There we go. Anywho, if you're researching, if you want to create a spell that is basically a spell from Unearthed Arcana, you can research it in campaign, and you can still get a roll to know, as you do in first edition. But there you go. Dungeon Master Guides, Monster Manual, yeah, Monster Manual 2 to a lesser extent, and no Fiend Folio except for maybe a couple of things are basically my go-tos there. As I said, the Dungeoneer and Wilderness Guides I use for inspiration when I'm running games in one type of, if I'm running an outdoor game, Wilderness, obviously, Dungeoneer's Guide, if most of what's going on coming up is happening in a dungeon, I'll just read through. I'll flip through. There'll be stuff in there that jumps out at me as I'm flipping through. It's like, oh, yeah, I got to think about this because I know this is going to be part of it. And this will help me get more immersed as I lead up to running a game. Character creation, he says, 46 arranged as desired. I have a rule called But I Want It that allows players to have minimums they need to run a subclass. 46 arranged as desired, which I think is method 1 in the DMG. But I Want It is a Larry Hamiltonism. Players wishing to play a class who do not roll the stats for it can set the minimum stats for those abilities that are pertinent, but all other stats will be rolled on a single D4 plus 8, making the range 8 to 12. That's an interesting, huh? That's an interesting thing. That's a way of letting someone play a ranger who didn't roll well enough to get into that character class, because first edition, unlike other editions, have some minimums, and you'll need to acknowledge that during character creation sometimes, and sometimes somebody will want to play something and they just don't have the stats for it. So this is a way of allowing somebody to do it. Starting gold, 3d6 times 10 hit points are maximum at first level, including the bonus or penalty from Constitution. Death at minus 10 hit points. Binding Wounds stabilizes but does not bring consciousness. If knocked to negative hit points, you have experienced trauma and are out for 1 hour per negative. Magical healing can minimize this. So I'm here. I'm here too. 46, I generally let people 46 and put it where they want. I haven't done this, but I want it. Maybe I'll add that, though. Starting gold, I do the 4d6. Drop the lowest and do the times 10. Because I want people to have a little more wealth for the miscellaneous mundane items. Hit points at max, I do that for first. Death at minus 10, I do that as well. Yes, unconscious at 0 and bleeding out. You got to be stabilized, otherwise you bleed out. That's DMG. Ask birth date. Calendar is 12 months, 28 days, so 12 months. 3d10 minus 2 for the 1 to 28th day of the month. Well, you're going to get a bell curve there with a lot of people in the middle. 3d10 minus 2 for 1 to 28. So they get a lot of people born in the middle of months if you do that. I roll a d30. I have 30-day months. It's easier. It's smooth. I do a D12, a D30, and a D24 at the beginning of a campaign to figure out the exact hour, day, and month of a year that the campaign will begin. Then we off to the races from there. Alignment. He says, good and evil are as one does. I have evil characters who are saving the worlds as long as they continue to get rich off it. Are they truly evil? He says. I don't allow evil in my campaigns. Alignment languages. None. We never used them that I recall back in the day. I agree with that. I don't use alignment languages either. Detect evil, he says. Only beings of great power and consciously and consistently devoted to evil will register. I don't necessarily play kobolds, goblins, and orcs as evil, just against the status quo of the civilized groups. I take this from the DMG. Good and evil are based on one's actions. Call yourself evil, but if you save children from a burning building, you're not necessarily evil. Again, this doesn't come up in my games because I just flat out have a no evil campaign rule. Every now and then I'll run a one shot at a convention or game day when it's everybody's playing evil characters, maybe even monsters, but it's one shot and it's anything goes, and those get crazy. But I wouldn't enjoy that as a campaign, so I wouldn't run it. Classes, Player's Handbook, Bard Class Document. So he's got a separate document for the Bard for himself rather than doing the old regular first edition thing. Any race can play any class. I don't do that. I also allow non-standard multi-class options like a half-elf cleric ranger. Interesting. I just stick by the book. It's easier for me not to make a lot of micro decisions in that regard because there are balance issues. I think, despite the idea of saying first edition is balanced, might be a little questionable. Nerdtastic 314R8. Hello. Hope the stream is going well. Yes, thank you very much. Please enjoy it. And check out some old ones, but don't go back too far. Hey, LexFire22. You look back too far, you'll see some... I mean, if you think this show's bad, wait until you see some of the older ones. That'll really put you off your breakfast. Anyway. Reading spell components. Okay, he's pretty... says he's inconsistent, always has been. Spell range... Indoors, outdoors, yeah. Feet and yards. But always feet for spell range and area of effects. Gaining levels. As long as you can find a safe place to rest. If it's a huge campaign where you're clearing areas, you can make a secure location. Don't roll a 1. Simple tasks. If there's a time element, tension, he'll let people roll, and the only bad thing is a 1. Deities, not really a rule. Handling his deities in campaign instead of pantheons, all different bits. So you can kind of make up your own stuff and decide what you're going to be doing worship-wise. Anyway, there's quite a bit more to read here. So there'll be a link in the show notes. Make sure you go there. Check out Follow Me and Die. It is... It is a wonderful website. I'm going to move it over here, out of the way now. There we go. And we're at a half hour, so I'm going to cut this off and say thank you very much to everybody who's popped in to the channel today. Poached Eggs, Nerdtastic, 314R8, LexFire22, and DM David. Hey, good to see you. Why is there a C on the end of DM David? That's interesting. I never noticed that before. Alrighty. Thanks so much for joining us today on Ernie Gygax's birthday. Don't forget to play some games today for Ernie Gygax Day. And remember, if you're working toward November to run events or join some for Virtual Game Hole Con, get those together and get them submitted. For the rest of our week, we've got GMing tips tomorrow, building adventures on Friday, GM reviews on Saturday, rules retrospective on Sunday, weekly news and announcements on Monday, cartography and world building on Tuesday, then back around the horn to campaign discussion come next Wednesday. Thanks again to everybody who popped in. Grail Knight, how you doing, buddy? Thanks again to everybody who's popped in. Be sure to follow the stream if you're here, and give us a shout out on the stream chat because it gets you on a list. We do a little giveaway every week, but we just got to make sure that who we're giving stuff away to aren't a bunch of bots. So chime in after you follow on the stream chat during the live show. If you're on YouTube watching this, thank you very much. Subscribe over there, please. Give us a thumbs up. Maybe make a comment, some constructive criticism. We could always use the help fixing the show and making it better. So what the heck. Thanks again to everybody. Enjoy your Ernie Gygax Day. I know I will be doing my best to do so. Play some games today and all through the weekend and have some fun. And I will see you again 9:30 a.m. next time, or the time after, or any day, here from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.